So first of all, I would like to say welcome to everybody. We are so excited to have all of you here this morning to discuss a very important issue, which is the nursing faculty shortage. My name is Carol Sabel, and I'm chair of the School of Nursing at Milwaukee School of Engineering. I'm also the legislative representative for the Southeastern region for the Administrators of Nurse Educators in Wisconsin. So once again, welcome this morning. Thank you to Alverno College for hosting this for us. They've provided us with a wonderful venue, so I just wanted to say thank you to them. And also welcome to the representatives and the candidates. We really appreciate you taking your times out of your busy schedules to join us, and we really look forward to hearing your thoughts, your opinions regarding the nurse faculty shortage. Just to let you know that we have leaders here today from all the major colleges and universities in the southeastern regions. These include Alverno College, Aurora University, Cardinal Stritch University, Columbia College of Nursing, Concordia University, Gateway Technical College, Herzing University, Marian University, Marquette University, Milwaukee Area Technical College, Moraine Park Technical College, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Waukesha County Technical College. We also have the Executive Director for the Wisconsin Nurses Association here joining us this morning, Gina Denick-Champion. So thank you, Gina, for taking the time to join us today. Just a couple of logistics. Our agenda this morning will be, after just a few brief moments to enjoy your breakfast and socialize a little bit, we will have a PowerPoint presentation. Following the PowerPoint presentation, we will ask the candidates to come up for a panel presentation. We will allow some time for questions after the PowerPoint presentation as well as after the panel presentation. I'd like to introduce to you Linda Young. Linda Young is Dean of the School of Nursing at UW-Eau Claire, and she's also the chair of the Legislative Committee for ANEW. So she's going to talk a little bit more about the nurse faculty shortage to provide some information, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everybody. It's such a privilege to be here this morning, and thank you to all of you who are in attendance. We are going to be talking about a very important topic near and dear to my heart, and I know to my colleagues who are part of this ANEW group. Just a little bit of background on ANEW. I started my first time dean role 8 years ago, which is when ANEW was formed. Prior to that, the 2-year nursing program leads had an organization, and the 4-year deans had an organization in Wisconsin. That year, they came together to form one voice for nursing education, and it was called ANEW, the Administrators of Nurse Educators in Wisconsin. We've been meeting since that time as one organization. We meet twice a year, and then we have regional meetings. I cannot tell you the joy and the work that has been done with this group of people. We have been working very hard to streamline for our students that pathway from 2-year to 4-year to graduate degree. By region, we've taken a look at programs and built partnerships and created change. So I celebrate being part of this organization. We've been also working with our practice partners to build academic practice partnerships as we deal with looking at the nursing shortage and nursing faculty shortage. So to all of you who are our nurse education leadership and nurse educators, it's a privilege to be gathered with you in this room today. Thank you. So let's get on with the PowerPoint. And topic, of course, is the nursing shortage. I'm just going to bring this to the side. So what we know, based on a lot of different surveys, but this one is a projection survey that was completed, we know that the nursing shortage is going to increase quicker than it ever has, and the volume of nurses needed going forward is going to be unprecedented. We've not seen this type of a curve in nursing to the extent that we are already beginning to see happen. We know in Wisconsin, annually we put out with our collective programs about 3,000 nursing students a year. And what our projection demand looks at, by 2020, that's just around the corner, we're going to need 800 more in the workforce for the jobs that will be out there. By 2040, and this is very unnerving for our CNOs to realize that we're going to be needing 27,700 nurses out annually, and here we are struggling to keep up with our 3,000 that we put out at this point in time. So remember that piece. This is important. In terms of Wisconsin and the number of nurses that hold graduate degrees, which are the pool of nurses we draw our nursing education workforce from, we have the largest with 10% being master's prepared in nursing. Doctorate of nursing practice, you'll see we're at 0.5%. And what's most troubling for me as a dean of a nursing program who hires PhD faculty is that we have 0.3% of PhD prepared nurses in Wisconsin. Let me also add the caveat to this that on a national level, we are tracking the nurse education workforce. The last 2 years, PhD prepared nurses have dropped by 5% each year. So remember that little kernel too. Oops, I'll back that up. Who are the nursing faculty in Wisconsin? Well, we have roughly 825 of us that work in our state, and we look very much like me. White, female, older, thinking about retirement, right? So we have a lot of growth in terms of diversity and also from gender diversity, bringing men into nursing, and we're working hard to try to increase our numbers. We need everybody to be involved. The highest nursing degree earned, and by age, you notice that the mean age of a baccalaureate student at graduation is 25. The mean age of a PhD prepared nurse upon graduation is 44. I graduated when I was 53. And so the amount of years that I can put in at the level of being prepared at a PhD level is small, and we're working hard in nursing education to encourage our nurses out from our undergrad to continue to go. Just keep going. Maybe take a few years out, but don't take these long pauses. The old model, like I participated in. The number of nurses 55 and older in education, you can see we're nearing almost 50%. And this is the number that, to me, is staggering. 59% of the current nurse education workforce is planning to leave within the next 9 years. And this survey was done 2 years ago, so we are 2 years into this. In the next 7 years, we're looking at 59% of the nurse education workforce leaving. So what does that mean? That means we're going to have to replace those folks. We're not even talking about expansion, and I get real nervous when I hear about new programs, nursing programs coming on board, expanding all of our programs that we have in place. Where are the faculty going to come? We're going to need to replace those to teach in the positions that are already in place. And we're going to need to expand and get volume beyond that. Right now, we did a survey, ANEW did a survey. We have 80 vacant positions in Wisconsin, nursing education. So that means there will be 495 nurse educators leaving in the next 7 years, and then the known 80 vacancies. So we are looking at needing to replace and grow a large volume of nurse educators. Nationally, we know there's a nursing faculty shortage. We all talk with your nurse educator leads in terms of search pools. We're delighted if we get 5 qualified nurse candidates, nurse faculty candidates in pool. And it's getting even more competitive. 93, this is the national faculty vacancy number put out by AACN. So that's 4-year programs and beyond. 93% of those positions require a doctoral degree, a PhD, or are preferred. So let's take a look at our advanced practice nurses. And for those of you who are not in the world of talking APR and our acronyms that we use, our advanced practice nurses are nurse practitioners, clinical nurse specialists, nurse midwives, our nurse anesthetists. And when you take a look in Wisconsin of who those folks are, presently we have roughly 5,000. So this would be a pool of people we can draw from for education, right? Of that 5,000, we have only 136 in a faculty role. And you might wonder why. Why would only 136 advanced practice nurses be in a faculty role? Well, I think this slide tells you the answer to that, right? So we know the mean, and this is 2017 data. We know the mean salary for registered nurses is 69,000. We know for our advanced practice nurses, the 6 figures are where the salaries are, and our highest being the mean for our certified nurse anesthetists, close to 200,000. And where is that PhD, DMP, master's prepared nurse educator salary? It's at $77,500. So can you see why it's a challenge? Yes? Thank you, Janet. Okay, so that's the picture of nursing faculty and numbers in Wisconsin, salary. Now let's take a look at what are some of the barriers for people wanting to go on. And we've been collecting this data over time, and these areas really have not changed. The main one is the cost of tuition and fees. And we are having more and more of our students carry debt from undergrad forward. So this one I would anticipate in our future surveys to only increase. Family and personal reasons, these folks going back to graduate school often are in the throes of family life with young children, other responsibility, aging parents. So this middle one, to me, is on us as educators. We need to create flexible environments so that it is possible to do all of it. And I've grown up with colleagues doing all of it, and it can happen, but that flexibility is so important. And then equally, 15%, it's lost work time and benefits. So now you're going back to grad school, you're not adding to your retirement fund, Possibly you may have health insurance, but you might be working part-time, and the number of part-time hours does not qualify for health insurance, so benefits take a hit. So actually the solution to all of this is pretty easy, and I think of the bow tie. I use a bow tie. My husband wears bow ties, so it's something I see rather often. But it fits this scenario so well. We have supply. You can talk with anyone in nursing education in this room to know we turn away qualified students with every application cycle. This past June, for our undergrad, just for the Eau Claire side, we have an Eau Claire and a Marshville side. We admit 40 on the Eau Claire side. We had 125 students, which is our usual, that applied, and we could only take 40 of those. These are qualified students. These are qualified students. So there is our future workforce to be able to educate all of those qualified students. And the demand is out there, so we have the supply. The demand, talk with any healthcare person, they're looking for nurses, right? So we know that there's a demand, and that demand is only going to get bigger. What's the wrinkle? We don't have the faculty to teach them. And so we need to expand the middle, the bottleneck, so that we can ensure all of our qualified students who want to be nurses are able to achieve that and contribute to the workforce in Wisconsin. Other factors limiting student admission would be lack of qualified faculty, 15%, and insufficient funds to hire faculty. And we need faculty hired at higher salaries. So what can we do to grow the Wisconsin faculty workforce? And that's, I think, what we want to get at today. What's the solution to this huge problem? Well, we want to increase master's prepared nurses, which are needed for our associate and baccalaureate degree programs to teach. And we want to increase the number of doctorally prepared nurses, PhD and DMP, to teach in the baccalaureate and graduate degree programs to ensure the health of Wisconsin. And so the ask going forward is a $10 million ask to fund 150 nurses to their master's or doctoral degree with a requirement to teach in Wisconsin. Now you may ask, how did those numbers, how did you determine 10 million? How did you determine 150 nurses to become faculty? And if all of you have this handout that looks like this, I'd encourage you to pull it out, and I will explain those numbers to you. It's the one that says Nurses for Wisconsin, Learn, Teach, Lead Outcomes. Okay, so this is serving as a demonstration project. What is Nurses for Wisconsin? In 2013 to 2015, $3.2 million incentive grant was awarded. I was the PI on it at UW Eau Claire. My partners were UW-Madison, UW-Milwaukee, and UW-Oshkosh. We were funded by these incentive dollars from the UW system to support nurses to their terminal degrees to teach. And now that we have awarded all the funds, we are looking at the outcome data. You can see we had folks going for their DMPs as well as PhDs. We had 4 postdocs, and we hired in Wisconsin 10 nursing faculty with loan forgiveness from dollars from this incentive grant. Again, it was $3.2 million, and we yielded 54 awardees. 14 have completed their teaching commitment. For the monies they received, they needed to pay back in teaching 3 years at a Wisconsin nursing school. So we have 14 that have done that, and 13 have remained in those jobs, which is encouraging. We have 17 right now completing their teaching commitment. We have 9 that are on deferment. And what that was about, we built into Nurses for Wisconsin thinking, okay, our NPs will want to get out and practice first before they come back and teach, to ground themselves in their NP practice and then come back to do the teach back. So we built in a 2-year deferment, and we have 9 folks out on that. And we still have 8 students that are in process of completing their terminal degree. So we're encouraged by the outcome, but I want to point to that 49, that this is just a drop in the bucket of our need. Remember, we talked about needing 575 people, nurse educators, to replace those going out and the 80 vacancy number of this year. So how can we increase nursing education faculty? This $10 million ask is the way forward, and it is a public-private entity where we're looking at the programs in Wisconsin that do Masters in Nursing Education with nursing education emphasis only, and terminal degreed programs at DMP, PhD, to have access to these funds to bring people in with the expectation of the payout of 3 years. And if that doesn't happen, as with Nurses for Wisconsin, that money comes back to us and we reinvest it in somebody else who will. Any questions about the demonstration project? Okay. Whoop. Oh. Thank you. So, based on what you've been seeing this morning with all this data, I just need to pause and acknowledge the Wisconsin Center for Nursing. In Wisconsin, we are so fortunate to have the Wisconsin Center for Nursing, who is the overseer for our nurse workforce survey and our nursing education workforce survey. And right now, that has been in place, I'm thinking, is it 8 years, Gina? Okay. And right now, there is movement to transition the mandatory nurse workforce survey to a voluntary status. And you saw today how important the numbers are with reliable data. We get 100% compliance with completing the nurse workforce survey. We want to continue that. We want to ensure that we have that strong 100% database on which we can talk. So I'd encourage you to support keeping the survey mandatory. And we need to keep a close eye on our numbers as we go forward. What are we turning around the nursing faculty shortage? Are we turning around the nurse workforce shortage? And it's that survey, those surveys, that give us that information.
Linda?
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out, for those who aren't familiar with it, the survey takes 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute survey that you complete when you go online to renew your license. So it's a very brief, doesn't take a lot of time.
Good point. Thank you, Carol. So that brings me to thank you. Thank you for listening. And anybody have questions? Yes. Oh.
I'm currently doing my terminal degree starting 18-19 class year. That loan forgiveness program is lacking a lot because I was rejected because they ran out of funds, and I'm already in the education arena. So to get people to come into there that's not even there and there's no funding for it, it's going to be very difficult to do that. I know there's some colleagues of mine that pretty much went into their PhD for that forgiveness and are going to drop out if they don't get it when the funds aren't there. So, I mean, I think that funding is very important to creating the next generation of terminal degrees in our workforce.
Thank you for that comment. And I've been receiving several emails of people asking, will there be another? And I think we all can see the one-time dollars helped. This probably can't be just a one-time budget ask either. It's going to need to continue for us to ensure we have a strong nurse education workforce. Yep. Other questions or comments? Yeah, Gina.
I could just point out, Gina Jenna Champion with the Wisconsin Nurses Association. There were two handouts that this one talks about the need to preserve the nursing workforce survey. It was an amendment to a DSPS cleanup bill, and the amendment called for making the survey voluntary instead of mandatory. The legislator withdrew that amendment, but introduced a separate bill calling for repealing the entire statute that calls for the center, calls for the collection of data by DSPS and DWD, and wiping out the Wisconsin Center for Nursing, which has contributed an incredible amount of data about the 105,000 nurses here in Wisconsin. And then a lot of the RN workforce survey, we'll be getting the results of the 2018 shortly. But just, again, this really helped us with identifying our educator issues as well. So just wanted to expand a little more. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Sure.
Would the $10 million go to continue the program, the program that was just completed?
No, it would be a brand new program and an expanded program. The Nurses for Wisconsin, it was focused just on the 4 UW nursing programs. And this would be expanding to all nursing programs, public and private, who have the Master's in Nursing Education with Nursing Education emphasis or the DNP PhD.
And what specifically does each applicant receive as part of as participating? Do they get a stipend and their education is paid for?
Right, and that's what happened with the demonstration project, and that's what we are envisioning would happen with this ask as well, that with the Nurses for Wisconsin, the applicants received $43,000, and they could receive that amount twice. So that covered their tuition, supplies, and a bit of a stipend. And it also enabled several of them to go full-time as students, step out of the workforce, and get to their terminal degree faster, which is something we were hoping would happen as well.
And then they paid for their own health insurance?
Right, that was not part. But I congratulate several healthcare providers because these folks may have been working very part-time. Some were able to continue on with health insurance in that venue. Mm-hmm. Good questions. Mm-hmm. Yep.
On the previous slide, you said that it was like a public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm just wondering, like, what is the private part giving?
Well, I'll use the example. So unlike Nurses for Wisconsin, which was UW Eau Claire, Madison, Milwaukee, and Oshkosh, and their programs only, it would include Marquette, it would include Concordia, it would include Edgewood, it would include, private nursing programs as well as public nursing programs that offered those programs. Does that clear it up?
I guess when I think public-private partnership, it's like, they're each putting something into a program in order to get something out instead of just like basically just public tax dollars going in to pay for it. But I guess the public-private is the schools, the way the schools.
Right, right. That together as a whole, and maybe partnership isn't a good word choice in describing that, but it would be made up of our public and private programs that have these specific nursing programs.
Of course, Chairman.
You're getting your steps in pay.
Well, as the Dean of Marquette College of Nursing, I have to speak. I think the partnership, public-private, is the impact it makes for our citizens, and that is the key in terms of the impact for our citizens when we don't have the nurses to take care of them is going to be huge. And as we go forward, we need to have nurses from all programs to be able to get out there, because not any of our programs alone, even public alone, can supply the stream we need. So that's for me, in my head, that was the partnership. This is a partnership to really move Wisconsin forward.
I guess on the question of public-private partnership, what are the private for-profit hospitals and medical groups, what are they contributing to solving this problem? Because the nurses would be working, in a lot of cases, in their workplaces.
Right, and that's a really good question as well. So I take you back to my point before I started talking about the data. I can tell you that all nurse education leads, and we talk about this at ANEW, what partnerships, public-private partnerships, have we developed, what are in place. So we are each working those building of those partnerships, and I'll give an example. UW-Eau Claire, I am partnered with Marshfield Clinic, and they are supporting my Marshfield site of my traditional BSN program to the tune of a little less than $1 million each year. So I'm also in partnership with Mayo Clinic, and I've been asked to work with the CNO to much more deeply partner with them to set up a model like Arizona State and Mayo, Arizona. So those are just my examples from my region. That is happening all over the state. So is this involving public-private, or not practice, academic partnerships? No, this is not.
I think another important point is that all of our hospital partners are providing tuition reimbursement for their employees.
Absolutely.
And whether it's you starting in the cafeteria and you're going back to nursing school. So they are supporting them. Most of them do not have payback requirements. They are saying, we are investing in you as an employee. They may have had to work there for a year before they go, but they are also upping their game on those. I think we've seen greater increases, especially, I mean, a lot of people are nodding, in the Milwaukee area, large amounts of tuition reimbursement for all levels of nursing education, which is really nice to see. They are also our partners for clinical sites, and they have all stepped up as much as possible. I think we are, there's not a hospital or a healthcare organization, particularly in southeastern Wisconsin, that doesn't have students from every one of us. We're all using these agencies.
Linda?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Erica Flynn. My question was about the $10 million, the $10 million ask. Can you tell me about how that $10 million is administered? Is it a $10 million investment, and then you pay for the scholarships or the grants from like an interest off the $10 million, or is it just a one-time, here's $10 million, go spend it?
It, in my mind, as we are evolving it, it is just that 10 million divided up to the programs to bring students in to complete their terminal degree or master's in nursing education. Okay, I think we need to move on. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda, and thank you for the great discussion. So now I'm going to invite the representatives and the candidates to come and have a seat up at the panel here so that we can have a panel discussion. And if you would please bring your little tent cards and place them in front of you so that everybody can see who is here. And as they get settled, I would like to introduce someone who needs no introduction, Peg Rauschenberger, who is Dean of the School of Nursing at Alverno College. Peg will be moderating the panelists. I have provided the panelists questions ahead of time that we would be asking them, and we're going to ask the panelists to please keep their responses brief, because with such a large number, we want to make sure that we get input from everybody. And then also, we want to have time to allow for questions after. So Thank you again so much for joining us, and thank you, Peg, for moderating. I will let you take it over.
I'm just going to make one correction. I'm Dean Emerita because I am one of those oldies and have transitioned out of that dean role this year. And I'm going to reveal something. I am 71 years old, and I am still here doing this because, partially because I love it, but partially because of the shortage. We need these faculty. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from all of you about your views about these questions that we have for you. As the moderator, I will try and keep us moving so that we get out of here on time. If you are going way too long, I have to tell you, I also maintain a practice in a jail. So I know how to give orders. So we will move along. But I am thrilled to see so many of you here. I'm going to start with the first question. I'm not fond of panels where we just keep going down one by one responding to the same question. But I am going to start on this end, put you on the spot. With this first question, and then I'm going to ask that other people certainly jump in with anything you have to say on the topic, hoping we will hear from all of you by the end. All right, the first question that we have for our panelists is, what would you propose as a solution to increase the number of nursing faculty in Wisconsin? We had the one proposal. I'm sure there are other ideas. So we'd love to hear from you.
Sure, Representative Peter Bark, I represent the greater Kenosha and Racine area. And Dean, I think if you would just work till 90 and convince your colleagues to do the same, we got this problem left. So I think that's a solution, clearly. More seriously speaking, I think this initiative that took place at UW, that you proposed to have this $10 million fund, certainly would be a good start. There's no question about it. Secondly, I think we have to be more effective at convincing people to go on to get more advanced degrees. Obviously, there's many people that are out there. I think that you can do that through a variety of ways. Having more flexible alternatives for people, making it more family friendly, more online kinds of courses for those that can be taught online. I know with nursing, a lot of courses could never be taught online. But for advanced degrees, I think there are some options there. So I think all of those kinds of ideas, I think, would really accomplish a great deal. And I thank you for the very thorough presentation we've had here this morning. I think it's opened my eyes. And clearly we have a crying need. I mean, demographically, we know we have baby boomers that are desperately going to be in need of nursing services. So I think this is a very acute need that we have. And I certainly will pledge to work hard to try to accomplish moving forward to solve this problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. State Representative David Bowen. I represent a big chunk of the city of Milwaukee and the whole village of Shorewood. 55,000 hardworking residents that have entrusted me to be able to represent them. I do think this is an important issue. My mom was a nurse as well in Jamaica before she moved here to this country to continue to work with seniors and the elderly. I do think one of the things that that graphic on the screen about how much nurse educators are paid compared to those working in the private sector, I don't think that can be ignored. I think there are a number of industries and specialties that we have folks that are working that in this economy, there's no way that you can ignore the fact that they have to be paid what the demand is for that field. So I would hope that we would be able to shift that to be able to pay nurses even more on the education side. And then if you are only limited by doing so much there, we have to get to the point where we have no debt at all when it comes to educating, especially a high demand field like nursing. There are so many other fields I can think of that it's one of the reasons that I support free college and investing so much dollars into our university system that we actually are bringing in a ton of other folks through the system, because back in the, much before I was born, I have conversations with folks about how affordable our tech colleges were, pretty much free, and how affordable our university system was. We have to get back to that, and I think free college is a way there.
Hello. My name is Red Arnold. Red like my hair, Arnold like Schwarzenegger, only not like Schwarzenegger, as my stellar Wisconsin physique will attest to. I am the state Senate candidate for District 7, and my main issue 4 years ago, as is this year, is direct primary care. Now, that doesn't necessarily answer the question, but I will. Direct primary care is essentially, we used to do horse and buggy or carburetors or prop planes, and now we do fuel-injected cars or jet engines. The whole system needs to be revamped. And if you watch my video, it's 43 minutes long on voteredarnold.com. It'll explain the whole thing. And essentially with that, you probably won't have a nursing shortage, but to address the nursing shortage, if you're actually looking for solutions, you have to think outside the box sometimes, and this is where I excel. I don't have very many redeeming qualities. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. But the one thing I do is to think outside the box. I'll give you an example. Think of a McDonald's, any McDonald's. With an eye shut, is there a Walgreens? You're all going to nod your head. No coincidence. Also, somebody pointed this out to me years ago, and it's not failed. Take a hospital, any hospital, and if there's not a crane on top of it, or near it, or construction cones around it, I'll buy you a steak dinner. I've yet to buy a steak dinner. Again, the system needs to be revamped. But if what you're saying is true, then perhaps even if you ask the 10 million and say you get it, is this a Band-Aid where it needs a suture? Or say you don't. Another example to prove this point, say Aaron Rodgers wanted Clay Matthews gone. He could do it in a week. He'd say, I'm not playing, I'm not taking pay, and that's it. You get rid of him or I'm gone. If there's a shortage where that bottleneck is, because that essentially is where the bottleneck is that there's not enough educators for the need, right? Team up, and I don't know if you guys got union representation, but team up and say, hey, you know what? We're not getting paid what we should. We're not going to do anything until you talked about the tuition? Yeah, tuition's out of control. Where's that money going? It's not going to you. So say, hey, it needs to go to us, because what are they going to do? Hire somebody else who's not qualified. Then non-qualified nurses go in, and then patients die and the hospitals get sued. They're not going to do that. Pony up, band together, and say, no, this is what the need is. This is what we deserve, because this is patients' lives on the line, plain and simple. So again, you want a solution? There it is. Again, outside the box, but.
Hi, I'm Gina Walkington. I am candidate for Assembly District 61, so Kenosha County. For me, this is an issue that illustrates so much of what needs to be fixed across the board in our state. The way that we, and when I say we, I don't think many of us, but our current legislators think of education. It has been disrespected and devalued over the course of the last 10 years, and that's something that needs to change. And we're seeing it. You're experiencing it at the highest level by being paid so much less, by having these barriers in place for new people not wanting or not being able to come in. Addressing the shortage, and I think that the $10 million proposal is fantastic. I would be fully supportive of it, and I would be fully supportive of it or something like it ongoing in the future. But we also have to address, like they said, the cost of education in general, the cost of higher education, and we have to address the other barriers that are in place for the people who are of the age to get these advanced degrees. The cost of childcare. That's a huge barrier for a lot of people. Not only being able to work full-time or working full-time, but then when you add on going to school on top of that, that is going to be just something that is not able to happen for a lot of people. So, thank you.
I'm Jim Brownlow. I'm a candidate for the Assembly for District 83, which is mostly in Waukesha County, but also includes Hills Corners in Milwaukee County. So my background is education, public school education, so I've spent my whole life as an educator, and so you don't have to convince me that education is not only a good use of tax money, but also it's a great investment, and we can see the need here for educated persons moving up and getting their PhDs so they can become educators, learning, teaching, and leading. So, and I looked a little bit at the Nurses for Wisconsin, and it looks like exactly the kind of program that I would favor if I were in the legislature. It has the incentives in the right way, as I said, and the accountability, and it looks like a very good investment for tax dollars. And being in education, knowing a lot of teachers, being in family with educators, and also having nurses in my family, I realize that we don't enter these professions to make money or to become rich, but we do to serve and be helpful to our communities. But I do realize that we need compensation, having been a union leader for a number of years. So I would support this $10 million proposal.
Well, thank you very much for having us today. I appreciate it and appreciate everyone getting up early on a Friday to be with us. And I'm State Representative Jonathan Brostoff. I actually don't have an opponent this cycle. I just wanted to be here because this is a very important issue to me. But I will say that, I mean, hearing everything today, you don't got to watch the Brett Kavanaugh hearing to see the overt sexism in this country. I think it's well reflected in the lack of adequate respect and pay for professions like yours, but also for a lot of female-dominated professions in this country. And again, in a capitalistic society, how much you're getting paid is how much you're valued. You know what I'm saying? So one of the proposals, and this isn't just your field, by the way. It's CNAs. You know, it's across the board, right? And we have a significant demographic problem in our baby boomer population in this state. And it's a nationwide issue, but it's acute in Wisconsin. It looks like a reverse pyramid, you know what I'm saying? And we have nowhere near the capacity right now to deal with it, as you all well know better than any of us. So I serve on the Aging and Long-Term Care Committee. I served on the Alzheimer's Committee with my friend Representative Skoronsky, and I've worked on a couple issues together, but we know what the issues are. We have the demographic information. Unfortunately, we're busy investing hundreds of millions and billions of dollars into really rich campaign donors' pockets instead of the capacity building for issues like this that need to be done for the survival of our state. So we have the money. We've been spending more money this cycle than we've spent ever as a state before. But where is it going? So to answer the question directly, there's a couple of bills that myself and Representative Subik in the Assembly worked on together. You can look it up. It's AB 4743, AB 4744, and AB 4745. We colloquially termed it the CNA Pay Act. And this is specifically to deal with CNA and personal care workers, but it was the same principle, which is three main things. Offering money to help people with tuition who are in Wisconsin, to help at the initial barriers. You said it's about 35% of the barriers. So the state stepping up and saying, you know what, this is a need, we got to build capacity. We're going to offer that assistance at the beginning so people can access this, because we have a lot of people that want to get into the field. Helping out capacity through our technical colleges and other training institutions, because that was one of the bottlenecks we saw. So we have a lot of people who want to get in, people that can pay tuition, but we don't have enough teachers. We don't have the class size that we need, so we got to help there. And taking the expansion so we can, and specifically directing the money to go towards living wages so we don't keep losing people to Quick Trip and McDonald's, etc. So that's the same principle that should be applied here. Those are the three things: help with the capacity, help with the access, and pay more. And it's very simple, and it can be done, but the leadership in charge now has chosen not to address it, even though we have all the information. And there's 39 days left for everyone here to address that. In 39 days, there'll be an opportunity to say you want to keep going this direction or you want to go another direction. That's your choice. But in a democratic system where we have representation, we have people who are dealing, who work for you, regardless of who's wearing what suit or who has what title or nothing like that, you know, everyone up here is aspiring to work for you. You're in charge, you're pulling the strings, and you gotta let us know what your priorities are. And I'll tell you that what you're talking about before that survey, I know Representative Makaw, you're talking about Representative Makaw with that. You know, you're talking about the survey being not mandated and then taken away completely. I serve on that committee, and I will tell you, and John's a friend of mine, I know him quite well, and you know, I've had meals with him, but and I believe that came from his wife, who was a nurse, who felt some hostility towards the survey and her private information being spread out to the government. Ironically, her husband's in the government, but don't trust government, but that's okay. But, you know, the idea that sort of overt hostility towards your profession is kind of a common thing, and that you even got to play defense on something like that shows where we are. You understand? And I would just say, again, you got 39 days to make this an issue, and then the real work begins. Because say we do have a new leadership in Madison, well, you know what? It doesn't stop there. If Evers gets in or if Walker gets in, it's still going to be a whole bunch of education to do at that level, and it's going to require a significant amount of engagement because you got a lot of ground to make up. And by the way, each year this is not dealt with, it compounds the issue. People are not getting younger in this state. We have to build capacity. We have to build capacity. So I don't really need your support because I'm unopposed, but I appreciate you all being with us today. And 39 days. Figure it out. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Segrist, and I'm running for State Assembly District 24, and that is a little north of Milwaukee. And so I have a unique perspective on this because I'm actually a nurse practitioner, and I teach at MSOE. I'm adjunct faculty, so I do the clinical stuff. So you're pretty much talking about me and what my guidance was to coming into this part. And so I looked into going to get my doctorate degree, but it was timeline, it was money, even the application process, I was just like, I got a little overwhelmed and decided I don't know if I really need my doctorate degree. And so I didn't apply for it. And now I have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 21-month-old. My husband's a physician, so he works really crazy schedules. And being adjunct has been really nice with our lifestyle, so I'm able to still teach. I'm still in the profession. I don't think I'm going to go back to practicing as a nurse practitioner. If anything, I'd either stay faculty or I might go back to bedside nursing because I really enjoyed that part. So with this proposal, I would support it. I think, like Jonathan said, there's a lot of things that we're subsidizing at the government level, like Foxconn, and there's Kimberly-Clark. And I think this is a drop in the bucket of what we're willing to do. And I think we need to make education a priority. When I've knocked over 5,000 doors running this race right now, and healthcare and education are the top 2 issues that I hear from people. And those are 2 things that I can speak quite well on and with experience. And investing in our education is investing in the future. And I remember, so I've been in the profession for about 12 years. And when I first applied to nursing school, I applied to 3 schools, and whoever took me, I was like, fine, I'll go there. And one was an associate degree, 2 were bachelor's programs. So I got into the most expensive school, lucky me, so I got to graduate with many thousands of dollars of loans. But I was able to get my bachelor's, which I was really fortunate, so I wouldn't have to go back and get my BSN. So I think there's a lot of things that I can bring to this, running as a candidate and hopefully winning November 6th because I'm on your side. And I have a great perspective, and so I support it. And so thank you for taking this time this morning.
Hi, I'm Liz Sumner. I'm running for State Assembly in District 23. I am not a nurse, so I thank you very much for inviting me to this breakfast and providing this very educational information because, I wasn't really aware of the situation with the shortage of nursing educators and staff. Basically, I think everyone has really covered the bases here, and all I will say is that when I'm elected, I plan to work with groups that know more about situations in the state than I do. And so I look forward to working with all of you to help improve the situation with nursing staff shortages and teacher education shortages.
Hi, I'm Lillian Cheeseman. I'm running for State Assembly District 15. That's West Allis and New Berlin, or at least parts of those municipalities. So I came here today. I'm not a nurse, I'm an attorney. And while I have had a lot of personal interactions with the medical field, I was not aware of the nursing faculty shortage. And so my goal coming here today was to learn and to learn from you what are the needs and what are the concerns. So I don't have anything prepared, but the one thought that was coming to me as I was listening to the PowerPoint presentation is, why are we not paying people to go to school? I understand like loan forgiveness, and that's a great idea, but I went to UW-Madison for college. Football players not only get free tuition, they get free housing, they get meal cards, and I think they get a stipend. I'm not sure. I know that they get mopeds to drive around campus. If we have this kind of a serious faculty shortage, that's why are we not paying people to go to school to get their master's degree and get a doctorate? I understand a fellowship, but I'm not sure if that's sufficient. And so I support this program that you've proposed. I actually think maybe we need to go a step farther, because if a lot of our nurses, part of the reason they're not going back to school to get advanced degrees is because they have to take care of their families. Well, then paying them to go back to school could actually solve a lot of their problem, a lot of the reasons why they're not doing it. And requiring nurses to basically have a spouse or other significant other to support them while they're going back to school, that also is pretty sexist. Because you know what, you shouldn't have to depend on a spouse in order to get your education and go farther. So those are kind of my off-the-cuff thoughts after hearing this presentation. And so those are kind of the goals that I would work towards in the State Assembly.
Hi, I'm Julie Hensey, and I'm running for the State Senate for District 5, which is the Wauwatosa, Brookfield, Elm Grove, West Allis, New Berlin area. And I've gotten to know a lot of the folks sitting up here who are also candidates over the last 6 or 10 months. And what I know that many of us want to do, and what Lillian is saying, is we're not here to give anybody answers. We understand that we're here to serve. I never planned to run for office. I'm here to help solve problems, and I'm hearing about this shortage for the first time this year too. So I'm a research librarian by trade. I spent 17 years as a librarian, and most of those at Marquette University. And the way you get to the best solution is you collect as much information as you can, and you have all the people at the table that that are stakeholders. And I think that a lot of us understand that this is about bringing communities of experts together, and those that are impacted, like people that would maybe want to go back to school but have children and hectic schedules, bringing all these folks together to explore an issue in depth and then find the best solution. So I am hearing that you have, and seeing all of this data that speaks well to this issue, and having worked with deans and associate deans in Marquette, it does not surprise me how well produced this information is, and that you've gone to extremes to collect it. There is no doubt that we need the kinds of solutions that you're proposing. So I would support this request for $10 million, and would look forward to working together to fix the problem over the next few years.
Hi, I'm Erica Flynn. I'm running for state representative in the 84th Assembly District. So that's New Berlin, Greenfield, and a little bit of Milwaukee in the southwest corner. I am a project manager, so I work in financial technology. I used to work in health insurance in the days before the ACA. And I could echo a lot of the ideas from my fellow candidates and state representatives here. And I I'll just say I would definitely support this $10 million grant, and I also think that we need to think bigger too. I mean, your folks probably picked 10 million because that's an achievable number, and I think that we need to think higher than that too, because this, as the presentation described, this is a huge problem that is going to affect us in the decades to come. $10 million is a drop in the bucket, and as Jonathan said, with Foxconn, it's billions of dollars that we're spending on a foreign corporation. So in the world of, you know, just about anybody who's put together a budget, the maxim is always, show me your budget and I'll tell you what your morals are. I'll tell you what your goals are. Show me your budget. Where are you putting your money? And I think that we need to invest our money in things that will do the most good. And nurses, I mean, every time that I've gone to a hospital or a, you know, another medical facility, you always hope that you get, you know, a good nurse, you know, and that you're going to have a good experience, because that it, you know, it affects your whole life. It affects what healthcare you get. And with the shortage of the impending shortage of nurses and the nursing faculty, you know, healthcare quality is going to decrease no matter how hard you folks work, and that's not right. You know, we all deserve great health care. I think you deserve to not be stressed out as nurses and nurse educators, you know, working extra hours trying to get the job done. That's not right. You deserve to be supported, and I think our state government and our tax dollars can support you, and they should support you. So I'll leave it there and pass it on.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Buffman. I'm actually running for state assembly right here in the 7th district, so Alverno is right in my district. A little bit about me. I'm a detective with Milwaukee Police Department and have been for 11 years. My wife is a nurse, my mother-in-law is a nurse, my mother's a nurse, 3 of my aunts are nurses, my grandmother was a nurse, and my mother-in-law's mother was a nurse. So this is an issue that is near and dear to me. I'm actually hearing this plan. I think this is a great idea. I really do. I think we're going in the right direction, and I'm actually really enthused that they were talking about reaching out and working with private partners in the private sector, because you guys are the ones teaching their employees, and if they don't have enough employees, they can't function. So they need to have an active role, or they should want to have an active role resolving this issue. And at the same time, you know, we need to help this bottleneck, whether it's, you know, whatever options should be on the table, increasing adjunct instructors, at the universities until we can replace those ranks with the more full-time roles. But the big thing with me is I'm representing an independent voice for this district and for my constituents. That's not Republican and not Libertarian or not Democrat, and that everybody has a place at my table so we can sit down and discuss these. Because I think in the end, we probably all have the same goal. We just might have a few different routes of getting there. So I just want to say thank you so much. You guys are doing some great work.
Now you had to wait until me on the very end. I admire everybody sitting at the table here. It's great, and it's great to be invited. I'm Ken Skoronsky. I represent the 83rd District, which is Franklin, Greendale, and a third of Greenfield. So I'm in the middle of some of the other potential candidates here. I'm here to learn more about your industry. I sit on the health committee at the assembly, and before I make decisions, I do a lot of studying. I need a lot of information. I come from a business background, a construction business, so I'm very astute on get your information, get your details, listen to everybody's side of the story. That's very important before I make a decision. My duties in the assembly, I'm the author of the Silver Alert, which I hope everybody's aware of.
Yes.
Also, I'm the author of some of the welfare and assistance on Bill 500 and 529. So before I get into anything, I like to do a lot of homework. I like to see people come into my office, get their feelings one-to-one or as a group. That's very important for me before I make decisions. So I admire all the comments down the way there. And I look forward to working with the nurses. Thank God you got a whole bunch of them in the family. You should never get sick. And I just visit the hospitals once a year for my annual physical, and that's it. And thank the good Lord, I don't have to be there for any additional assistance. But I look forward in working with you. It's a profession that is needed. It should be well revered and admired. And we look at it as, and I do, as when I first started my business, I was a young person. Today, I'm just a little more mature. But as you're going through, when you have I'm going to say the more matured or the folks that have put in a lot of time in grade, those become your educators. They've gone through the system. Those are the people that should be picked up to teach the people coming in, because they've gone through, you get past the book learning. Book learning is great, but you have to get down to the real experiences. And who has the real experiences? It's the people that have paid their dues, have been into surgery, have admitted patients, helped them, and gone through all the stuff. Nobody's body's the same. There are certain things, yeah, your heart pumps and everything else, but there are all the little unique things that come up with everybody's. And with that experience, by being there, can be shared so willingly and so accurately with the younger people that are coming in. And I think that's really important. So I'm willing to learn. I want to know more. And my door is always open. 209 North at the Capitol. I'm unopposed. So my big thing is I'm the chairman of the Veterans and Military Affairs. I'm out with all the veterans all the time. I'm in Appleton, I'm in Wausau, I'm all over the state listening to their concerns and what they have. And they have a tough time between the state and the federal stuff and the grants and where they're at and the housing and all the other problems that they have. So my center of energy is mainly the veterans and their families and their families, the wives, the kids, the husbands, no matter what part of they are in the military. So give me the information, let me help, get me educated, and that's what I look forward to. So thank you very much.
Well, thank all of you. I'm not done, but thank you for the responses to that question. And please know, the people in this room can be the sources for a lot of that data that you're looking for, as can, I'm giving a plug one more time, for the workforce survey. Because it's not just about nurse educators, it's about the nursing workforce. So we need the data. But, and because you're also smart, you nicely integrated your responses to some of the other questions that were on the list. We want to leave some time for questions from the audience, but I'm just going to throw out there to whomever might want to respond. One last question. We've talked a little bit about helping people, the 10 million to help people to get the education. Any ideas about how to up the salary disparity for educators, since people with the same education and credentials in practice make $30,000, $40,000 more than educators? So any ideas you might have about salary? And this can be anybody.
Have you ever
Sure,
tried?
well, let me,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, let me jump in. You know, with salary, it's a little trickier, particularly for private colleges, obviously.
It is.
Because, you know, you can, you know, certainly provide more student aid and support in that regard. We've had different kinds of programs before where people practice in Wisconsin. You get tuition, I mean, you get, we'll pay part of their costs that they have in terms of student debt. I think those are creative ideas we should definitely look at, given the intense need that we have. Obviously, the UW system has been cut dramatically by, you know, Governor Walker. I mean, it was cut by over $250,000 twice. That has a huge impact in their ability to provide educational services for nursing or any other program for that matter. And I think, you know, in the information age, about the worst thing you can ever do is to cut higher education, where we clearly need to invest more heavily. So those are very important priorities. I think those are changes that could happen. The other thing that I would point to for both the previous question, to a lesser degree maybe this one, but other states like Minnesota have allowed people to refinance their student debt. And I have a niece that's in nursing. She has quite a bit of debt left over from her program, even though she's been out for 3 years. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever. It doesn't cost one taxpayer dollar to be able to allow people to refinance debt. We've had a program, a legislative initiative for a couple different sessions now, and it's way past time that we bring that up for a vote and do what our neighbor Minnesota has done, which has been very important in terms of helping people to be able to afford then to go on to graduate school. Because if you're carrying a huge debt, it's pretty difficult to make an investment then to go on for your master's or nurse practitioner, much less a PhD, to become a faculty member. So those are the array of types of initiatives that I think really would make a difference.
Well, I think the question specifically was how do you pay more, right?
Right.
Okay. So if the question is how do you pay more, I think we have to look at, as was very clearly stated by Erica, you know, what's actually valued in our society, and how does that value get attributed? And I think there has to be more value attributed to the profession, and I think there has to be I think there's a significant role that the state has to play in that specifically, and it's partially through the university system. I think it's partially through other public opportunities for building capacity, but a big part of it is actually everyone here, and everyone who's not represented here, or everyone who's not here but represented needs to, you know, if you're not on the, you know, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? You ever heard that before? You know what I mean? Everyone here needs to be at the table, and you need a voice. You know, when the road builders, when the, you know, when other groups, when the Wisconsin Manufacturers Corporation comes to the table and they want something, you know what I'm saying? So a big part of it is I think there has to be more political organizing done proactively by folks in the profession. How many people do you know that aren't even, for example, registered to vote? Not to mention how many people that aren't participating in other ways or making their voices heard and taking the power. And you can, you know, it's not about logic. If it was about logic, this would have happened a long time ago. It's not about needs. If this was about needs, it would have happened a long time ago. It ain't about that. The state right now, you know, you make the power, you take the power. And right now, I think there's a lot of power being left on the table from your profession, and that takes a proactive, you know, kind of grab it by the throat approach. You know, and it's not about asking either, because you know, you ask, you're gonna get half of what you ask for maybe, and you might not get anything. It's about making your profession a priority in the same way that other professions get to be a priority, and I think that's a little bit of homework for everyone here to think about what that looks like and what kind of organizing can be done. But think about this: how much of you in this room are force multipliers? Meaning, how many people do you come into contact with on a regular basis that could be stepping up their level of involvement in a significant way that could build, you know, that could build power for years to come? You know, think about that. Each one of you should go home and think about every single person you're coming into contact with and how much power you have. How much power you have. Because you ain't here, you know, you're not just an average person coming here. Everyone in this room has a lot of power, else you wouldn't be here. You're not just some first-year student or nothing like that. You've earned your bona fides, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think that's part of it. The other part is you need a legislature and a governor that's more responsive to your needs, and that's going to be willing to roll up the sleeves and do the work to make sure that the needs get met, as opposed to those who pay the biggest campaign checks only getting their needs met, which is what's happening right now. So I hope that answers the question.
My thoughts on it are just like you have to look at who's benefiting from, you know, a stronger nursing program and more graduates. And I think that's like our hospitals and probably our insurance companies. And I would say to look towards them, possibly for endowments for, you know, different department positions. And, you know, trying to look that way to increase salaries if the money isn't available at the educational institutions.
And I would say some of these healthcare issues will be taken more seriously because you're going to have more women at the table in the legislature. And I think that that's going to make a huge difference. You have a voice. I just don't think everybody's listening. And when you get more women at the table, we are going to be listening.
Well, let's leave this part of the discussion. Well, I think someone may disagree slightly. Okay.
Well, no, I just want to say, when it comes to educators versus in the payment gap, there are some advantages, and if you've read Ramit Sethi or Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week, and I Will Teach You to Be Rich, money's not everything. You know, and nobody ever says on their deathbed, boy, I wish I would have made more money. What's money if you can't spend time with your family? So there are advantages of having the days off, not working the weekends, not being covered in bodily fluids. But that doesn't mean you still can't make the money. And like I was saying before, and here's the thing, Honus Wagner, 1907 Honus Wagner baseball cards worth the most money. Why? Because there's so few of them. If you have more of something, it devalues it. So a shortage is not necessarily that bad. And I'll go to Aaron Rodgers again. He doesn't get paid the highest salary in the league because he's just another quarterback. He's the best at what he does. So use that, because your shortage, and I got my notes here, your shortage, use that, like I said, team up. Use that to get the money first. Then you get the faculty, and the faculty is easy to convince the college, because the college is what? More faculty means more nurses, means more money. So get the one thing first, team up. And like I was saying before, you don't necessarily, even if you get the 10 million, what about next time? 20 million? Is it a Band-Aid where a suture needs to be taking place? And you're always asking, the minute you have somebody else do something for you, they own you. It's their responsibility and not yours. Make it yours, and do it. That way, you've got the money, you've got the resources, you've got the power. And that they can't take away from you. So, yeah, so basically, and I want to stress this for me personally, politicians talk. That's what they're good at. They talk, and then they micturate on your shoes and tell you it's raining. I can't stand that. No talk, or all talk, no action. We need action, we need solutions. It's great to talk, but we need the solutions. Again, find somebody that presents them. I know I will, but even if you don't get it, there's always something else. So keep that in mind when you're out talking to voters.
Well, thank you. Now, this is the point, we have like 10, 15 minutes left, that we're going to open it up for questions for our candidates and legislators from the audience.
I actually had a question for you folks. So, and on the issue of the pay gap, so I had an idea that we need more funding for our UW system, right, in general. So what if we had part of the UW system budget set aside for, to kind of cover that pay gap so that it's more attractive to be a faculty, nursing faculty at a state university program? What do you think about that? Would that work? I know that would that put pressure on the private universities to increase their salaries, and then would they be in a bind because their budget doesn't allow for that?
You know, and I think that's been part of the problem for the schools of nursing in the UW system is they'll go back and say, go back and get your share. And the next thing you know, the deans are in the throes of having to argue with the business schools for a share and it gets to be, well, we know how political that can be. And because that's been the recommendations in the past, but I think if they were to look at where's the demand and why can't we meet it, and if we're looking at salaries as one of those issues into the entree into a nursing program, that we probably could, you know. But it's starting at that base of, you're right, trying to convince the powers that be, you know, within the system, within the border regions, that, you know, the dollars need to meet the demand in terms of what these jobs are paying outside the.
Okay.
I just have a general question. Janet Kretschy, Dean of the Marquette University College of Nursing, and again, really, really appreciate you being here. And it's a great way to get information. One of the questions I had is that the nursing faculty shortage has been an issue for a very long time. And so all of us live it every day. And so we think we're getting information out, but I was surprised to hear so many of you say that this was new to you. And so that's kind of feedback loop for us to say, what do we need to do differently? Because this has been a very long-standing problem. And so if our legislators are not aware of it, if you have any more insights, because we think we're doing a fabulous job and we think we're trying to get this out and we think we're trying to publish it, and yet I thought, well, we're obviously needing to do something else. So I would love your feedback about how can we get this out, because I'm not sure everyone makes the link to say, when you're in the hospital in 2 years or 5 years or 7 years, or the person you care most about is vulnerable and does not understand our complex healthcare system, if you don't have a nurse who gets you, and I think one of our candidates said every body's different. It's not just the body. Every single human with social determinants of health, which is so much more important than anything else, has a completely different situation. So a surgeon can go in and do a procedure that's pretty similar patient to patient, but the nurse has to go in and say, okay, this person is deaf, how are we going to do this? This person is homeless, how are we going to do this? This person speaks a different language. And that's what a nurse does, and is what we call that synchroscope between the patient and the healthcare system. How are we going to be as a state if in 5 or 10 years you don't have that person? So somehow help us get the word out, because this is not just we are nurses here as ROAR. This is what happens to patients in 5 or 10 years if we don't have prepared nurses.
So I'm just gonna say something quickly about this. So I think it also lies on the legislature of the people that have been elected. For instance, my opponent's not here, and he's a representative. And so I think that says a lot to me about how he finds this issue important. And I've spoken to him before I decided to run against him on a couple issues, and one was the opioid crisis, and he never followed through. So in my eyes, it's not a priority. And so that means that we need to elect individuals who see nursing as a priority. So I think there's also a shared responsibility in this of what's important. And I'm planning on winning November 6th. And this is obviously, I mean, I'm a zebra because I'm in this and I know what it's like for us across the table. But I would definitely make this more of something that needs to be brought to the legislature when I win, so that we're passing legislation that is going to help our nursing shortage. So I think that also plays a role, like Liz's, Jim Ott's not here, Lillian's person's not here, Erica's person's not here, and their representatives who are sitting at the state representative in Madison voting on issues, and this is not important. Jonathan can't get his legislation even to a hearing, which is about CNAs, because GOP's running it right now, and I think healthcare is important. So, okay, all right, I'm off on a tangent. But anyways, that's just how I feel. Thanks.
Can I jump in real?
No, I'd actually already called
sorry,
it.
I'm sorry.
Because as I had said before, I was kind of aware that there's a nursing shortage in general, but I was not aware that there was a nursing faculty shortage. I have POTS, newly diagnosed, like about just over a year ago. I've been in the hospital and doctor's offices so often in the past year and a half to get to that diagnosis and to get treatment. And so, yeah, it is kind of shocking that I was not aware that this is a problem. And so as far as advertising, I'd say the best place to start is in the doctor's offices. Put up some posters in the hospitals, because when you're sitting there waiting for your appointment, you're bored and you will read anything. And so if some of these materials were maybe getting out to the places where our people with healthcare problems, that's where they are, right? I'm also I'm taking care of my mom, who's 75 years old, so I'm also taking her to doctor's appointments, and so I'm sitting there waiting for her appointment. So it's not just even reaching the patients, it's reaching their caregivers, it's reaching their loved ones. And so I think that, like, TV ads or newspaper ads, I mean, I don't know if that would work, maybe internet, but no, Facebook maybe, but I would actually focus on putting this information
in the hospitals, in the waiting rooms, or even in the exam rooms, because, you know, when you're sitting there, you've been seen by the nurse and you're waiting for 15 minutes to see the doctor. Like, oh, that's when you're really bored and you're looking through the wall and trying to find something to entertain you. So I guess that would be my suggestion, to get this issue out there. Because I had no idea that there was a faculty shortage, and I've been talking to a lot of doctors lately, so.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were going. So much like your guys' career field, law enforcement's the same way right now. Large baby boom generation, they knew it was coming, just like with the nurses survey, you guys saw it coming. The problem is that our government has been tone deaf. Whether you're left or right, it doesn't matter. They're not listening. They hear you. They've gotten your information. The nurses out there know it too, because I hear it from my family as well. So that's why I think it's incumbent to start looking into, and I know we were talking about it before, into the private industry, Aurora, Wheaton, the private industry that needs you guys, because I think that will get things done a little bit quicker, as opposed to, begging and pleading the case with our state legislator, which, the party bosses decide what's on the agenda. They decide what's going to get voted on and what's not going to get voted on. So I think, obviously you guys are doing a great job, and this is, like I said, great plan. But I think it's time to really look into the private sector, because they're the ones that are relying on you guys to get nurses out into the field.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. I think that I think that might be one of the most important questions of the day, and I think it's a really good one. There's two parts. There's the education, there's a persuasion to that question, I think. And as far as the education component goes, I have a lot of ideas, and I've been working with a lot of other groups who are underrepresented in that manner, whether it's with Representative Skoronsky, working with the deaf community, and working with the audiologists, working with cemeterians, a myriad of different groups, and I'd be happy to work with you all on this as well. I'm going to give you my personal email address because the answer's longer, and anyone who wants it can take it down, but it's just my first name dot my last name at Gmail, so just jonathan.brostoff@gmail, spelled the Jewish way, but you can see it on there. So I think that it's there's a lot of things shorthand you could do to bring people in, such as visiting sites, having people check it out. But I will say that the current leadership's answer to the shortage around this has been reducing standards, reducing hours, reducing education, reducing the standards, and that is not a long-term solution. In fact, quite the opposite. That's going to get us in a lot of trouble down the line. And Wisconsin, for a long time, was a leader in areas of education around healthcare as well, in a lot of areas. And we've, especially over the last 10 years, taken a huge, huge step back in those areas, and that continues. And so again, the biggest, the biggest thing you can do, the best thing you can do, real talk, is get Emily elected. You need someone who's a champion on the issue, who understands it, who can speak the voice, and who other colleagues will respect because of their expertise, in the same way that people have expertise in accounting issues, or homelessness issues, or occupational therapy, or youth work, or whatever other background, science teaching, whatever backgrounds people come from. So if you're really serious about that, you got 39 days to get her elected. That's the biggest thing. 39 days to get someone like Emily elected, and that's the best thing you can do.
I think we have time for one more comment. Red, two more. Red, and then.
Well, to answer your question, and I'm sorry, the attorney with POTS, what's your name?
Lillian.
Lillian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that test that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fun, huh? Yeah, I know, because my wife still has an undiagnosed, and it's on. But to answer your question, you're partially there, yes, but not necessarily on Facebook or have it up on. But I'll give you an example, because you interact with patients. Doctor's not there. And I don't know if this bridges ethical lines. I'm not an attorney. You might be able to help me out with that. But, oh, Mr. Bowen, I'm so sorry for that 5-minute wait. Let me get you that nursing shortage. Yeah, if you go to nursingshortage.com.
Oh, no, we can't do that.
Can't do that.
And why is that?
It's an ethics. It's a breach of ethics.
Well,
Sure.
Right, of course. Right. Of course. Of course. And it would be totally inappropriate.
Okay, well, then let me recant and say, all right, there's active and passive. If I come up and say, yeah, sorry about that weight, yes, that's a little bit forward. But if he complains about the weight, and it's legitimate, is that not something to say,
Let's hear
well,
from
unfortunately, and are you telling him something that's not true?
Red,
I
we
mean,
wanna
you
make
got
sure that-
ethics, and
Red,
again.
we want to make sure that Gina has a chance too. She gets a.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Absolutely. And it's totally inappropriate.
Well, I would hope that you would be honest with me and tell me there is a shortage, because if there is a shortage, that's something that somebody
She's
Red.
being honest with you
Hey,
right
Red.
now,
Do
Red.
about
That's
it.
what this is
Hey,
about.
Red, do you want to
Let's
give
move
Gina
on.
a chance? Gina.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, they've been taking the ball. That's a good point.
No, it's okay. Most of what I was going to say has been said, but I wanted to expand really, really quickly on it. And I know I'm fairly certain I'm preaching to the choir, because if you're in this room and you're participating in a legislative breakfast, you are already very well aware. So how do you expand that? I'm a former community organizer, not former, I'm still a community organizer, and I probably will be forever. And we talk about, adding more money into our education system, restoring the funding to the UW system so that there's money to pay more to more faculty. We talk about making sure that we have a state legislature that will listen and will prioritize the needs of our communities. But if they are not hearing from their constituents, how are they going to know? And I think that is, we've seen over the last 2 years especially, one of the most powerful things that can happen is when the people, constituents, know what is happening, they will rise up and they will use their voices and they will contact their representatives and things will change. Or at least maybe they won't change, we'll hold off the bad, right? So I think that is, I don't know exactly how you get there if you engage community groups locally, but I think that is something, when I'm elected on November 6th, I hope my phone is ringing every single day with constituents who want to share whatever they need with me. That's it.
Right,
Take it
one last comment over here.
Thank you for adding that to the conversation. I think it's important to recognize if there are wins or struggles in trying to diversify the field, the resources, to make sure that folks that could get into the pipeline to become and fill this shortage are making their way into the field. I think about my mom, where her certifications from another country could not be recognized here. And if there were resources there that were giving her a hand up to say, here, this is a legitimate career path that you can be a contributing member of a cause that's very noble to support the constituents of this community. I'm sure that she would have been dying for an opportunity like that, and how her family would be impacted, how our community would be impacted to be able to fill that gap. I think about the many CNAs across southeastern Wisconsin that don't have those same resources or that same connection that legitimately could fulfill this shortage, and knowing that a significant number of those CNAs are probably even more young women of color that are in that field, and even young men of color too, and how they can help fill this problem. I think it's something that can be championed by the work that you guys are doing, and it can be talked about on doors in a number of neighborhoods throughout this community to talk about how important it is for people to pay attention to this election in 39 days. Exactly. And how, you know, people are working as hard as they can every day right now. And some people are on a treadmill. They're running faster and they're not going further. And this is something that can possibly catch their attention and say, you know what, I need to slow down and actually make sure that I'm giving my perspective of who should be in leadership to really address these issues.
All right, let's give our group. And I'm going to turn it back to Carol.
And thank you, everyone, for attending today. I think that we had such a great conversation, and I think that our candidates and our representatives learned a lot, and I think that we as educators learned as well. So I think that this was a very successful event overall. So thank you so much, everybody, for your attendance today. And I think that we will all be better informed in our decision-making as we move forward. I think we could have talked for another 3 hours, so being respectful of your time, thank you for your attendance again, and have a great rest of your day.